And I want to watch that. We will be right back to the race sooner rather than later. Here, let's see.
It's hard to describe. It's kind of an upstream.
Right.
Like, right now
I'm switching over to the NSF coverage here. And we will get back to the Hasterplan sooner rather than later. Weather update for Artemis 1. 40% POV. Got it.
They're going to also use it for attitude control in flight.
Yeah, that could very much be the case. And that was a good indicator.
So yeah, if you see that, definitely point that out and we'll try to relay that.
Also, another good indicator would be the deluge system. You would probably see it on the left view right now.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye on these camera views here. But we are into engine chill operations on ship 24, getting closer to potentially a static fire. Could of course also be a spin prime or something like that. But we've seen ship do a couple static fires, so it would be in line for more static fires. And with the amount of locks on board, could be supporting a more substantial static fire. And now I wonder, is this fuel load more tied to the amount of propellant they expect to burn during the static fire? Or is it more of a, we need more weight in the tanks in order to hold down the vehicle when 6 Raptors fire?
I think the corresponding methane tank is not filled enough.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly where I was going.
So it's definitely not the ratio you would need for this extent of firing.
You're
so
going to burn very oxygen rich.
Yeah, very oxygen rich combustion here. They are going for it.
If you go that oxygen rich, if you go that oxygen rich, it will surely become engine rich very quickly.
That's a Raptor classic, right?
But yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm wondering if if the propellant load is actually much less, because again, it's still a short static fire engine. So my guess is it's more about a weight consideration, which would make a lot of sense. And we were talking about that with Booster 7 testing too.
Yeah. Like,
anyway.
Absolutely, this is a weight simulator. It's not a weight simulator because we cannot simulate. It's a
fuel. Well, it's not even a fuel simulator. It just is fuel. I don't know if you're really simulating anything.
It's when people say it's a mass simulator. We cannot simulate mass, so it's not.
You know what they mean, though.
Yeah, but it's a payload simulator.
Anyway, all right. So now that we're in engine chill, I want to speed run a couple things before we get to the point where a static fire could become imminent. Again, it's just started, so we're safe for a couple minutes here. Eric, thank you for your support there as well. Desmo asking about our thoughts about if we're worried about any of the recent developments with SLS launch campaign. My quick answer is going to be no. NASA went into some pretty good detail as to how they can rationale their launch decision, and with they see similar performance on that one engine chill sequence, they have ways to investigate whether or not it's a bad sensor or something like that. They will not launch if there is a chance of. If there is any significant chance of an actual problem, they're not going to launch that mission. I think they've rationalized it very well. Rationalized it, I guess, is the actual verb there. My apologies. Let's see. Matthew's saying, my son just got home from the first day of first grade, and all he wants to do is watch you guys and see Ship 24 light up. Thanks for the coverage. Well, Matthew, tell your son that we're glad he's tuning in, and we are on the verge of potentially a Ship 24 static fire, so hopefully he'll get what he wants. Let's see, Wenchi, giving us the timestamp for Frost starting the show. I know Adrian was looking for that. Appreciate that support. Here's a question. Do we know if they're still going to be moving the front flaps of the ship forward? Moving the front flaps toward the spine of the ship, like Elon mentioned last year. I know that was pitched at some point, but we haven't heard much about it, so it's possible those plans are either on hold or being thrown out. We haven't heard anything recent on that, so we'll have to wait for more updates or to see hardware before we give an update on anything like that.
Also, update from Mark, who's doing lines on the frost rings here. The frost ring now with the engine chill is stable, so it seems like they reached the configuration they want to reach, and then they started engine chill.
Gotcha. Okay. Also, Chad is pointing out that the correct word for the extra fuel load is probably ballast, and that is very correct. Thank you for giving me that.
Try not to make the joke.
No,
yeah,
no
I'm also
ballast
resisting.
jokes. No ballast jokes.
Okay, okay, we're going on. Go. Next question.
Next one.
Kushal, thank you for the support with the 7 and 24. I see what you did there. Appreciate
No
the
floating. I haven't
support.
seen anything like that.
Here's a question from Eric. What is the ultimate plan for Starship recovery? Will they revisit landing legs since catch unlikely given the position of the forward and aft flaps? Alright, so here's a point to reiterate before we dive into the question. Just like on the booster is not being caught by the grid fins, the ship is not being caught by the flaps.
Sorry. The ship just vented from the header.
Did it?
Yep.
Yes, just
What?
a few seconds ago, the ship vented from the header. So it seems like there's pressure at the top. But it vented for 100%, like 20 seconds ago. It vented from the head. So there is some sort of pressure there.
It's blowing a lot of hot air.
Weird.
Oh, now I see it. Yeah. It occurred at about 4:15:01 p.m.
Yep. Sorry, I had to
So,
interrupt you there,
almost a
Thomas.
minute
Yeah, no,
ago.
thank you. Yeah, always dive in if you see something that we need to be pointing out. So, potential header tank action on this engine
Got it,
test,
Thomas.
whatever it may be. But
Yes.
engine chill still going. Again, if you're not sure where we're looking for engine chill, it's the vents that are right in front of the flaps, especially on the right-hand side view. You can see the vents coming out.
Yes.
But anyway,
And
back
based
into
on-
this. Sorry, go
Based
ahead.
on previous, we might, like, as soon as we are reaching, like, 422, 23, we should be very careful.
Okay, copy. Thank you that. So to dive back into this question, the flaps and the grid fins on their respective vehicles are not being used to catch those vehicles. There are mounting points that are also used by the chopsticks to lift the booster and ship onto each other. And those are the same points that the ship and booster will settle down onto the chopsticks during a landing attempt. That being said, obviously I could see how the flaps would be something else that the ship has to basically avoid when being caught. And landing legs are going to be necessary for landings on the moon and on Mars because there won't be the catch infrastructure there. So, do you guys think that ships will be caught long term here on Earth when we can build that infrastructure? Or do you think landing legs are going to become a universal feature of all starships, not just the ones landing where they're...
If you guys are wondering, I'm watching. I'm watching everything here. I'm sorry, I'm not really talking much. They said they said that the header tanks fired methane out, so yeah, we might be in for something sooner rather than later.
Do not dare to speculate if they get there, because I think it would be a very complicated situation. But I think that's the way, and I don't think they
Max.
would easily go away from the catch tower idea if they don't have to.
So you think that SpaceX is going to spend the resources to fly starships carrying the infrastructure to build catch towers instead
One
of
day.
just putting landing legs on the vehicle?
One day, maybe.
I understand exactly what you're saying. Something tells me it's way easier to just put landing legs on the thing, especially because you will need it, like, at least for the first couple
Wait,
landings.
they want to
but
put
it's very
catch towers
interesting.
on the moon?
I feel like this all depends on how far does SpaceX get with their Mars goals and with their Mars ambitions. Like, a lot of this is very much dependent on that. And I don't think they would ever go away from the Earth
On
no
Mars?
landing legs situation if they don't have to.
Point
As long as
still
it works,
stands.
I think they will just catch it. Because it saves mass. If it works, it works.
I mean,
But there could
may-
also be a
maybe
situation,
for-
like, this is a very fluid...
Maybe for Mars, yeah, but on the moon, no. You have your landing engines. You don't need a catch tower. The landing engines that are midship mounted, supposedly. On Mars, though, maybe. But you guys got to remember, on Mars, Starship is an SSTO. Lack of atmosphere does that. That thing, Starship could make it into space by itself, up and down SSTO, no problem. Part of the reason why we need such a ridiculously big launch pad here is because Earth's grav well is pretty hefty comparatively.
explanation is simply that you do load more liquid oxygen than liquid methane. The ratio is burning more LOX than methane. However, given that you literally don't even see a frost ring on the methane tank, the much more likely actual explanation is that they loaded a bunch of liquid oxygen as ballast to help weigh down the vehicle for an upcoming static fire, and given how much ballast they seem to have added, definitely fuels the, no pun intended, fuels the speculation that this could be a 6-engine static fire. So it's mostly actually about weighing down the vehicle for the static fire
Oxygen
test.
isn't
We believe
fuel,
that is the
Thomas.
explanation. So they're not loading the actual ratio that you would normally load.
Well, 420 and nothing happened.
Damn you and your puns!
Yeah, and we are past the 420 mark for those keeping track.
Nice.
Thank you, Alex. Bruce with a question. While a 6-engine test would be cool, would they ever run all 6 during a launch, running a sea-level engine in vacuum? Yes, and we've touched on this a little bit before. Keep in mind that the vacuum engines do not gimbal. So to have some better steering capability, you'll actually still want to fire the sea-level engines during the initial ascent. Gives you a little bit more thrust, even though they're slightly less efficient in vacuum, obviously, but it also gives you gimbal authority and steering authority. So the understanding is that all 6 engines would be firing. Am I correct there, Alex?
Yeah, and also because it is a sea-level engine, it doesn't mean it doesn't run on vacuum.
Right,
Like,
it's just less efficient.
Exactly. It's less efficient than the vacuum optimized version, but it is still more efficient than when it is at sea level. So that we gotta keep that in mind. And also Falcon 9, when it does all these boost back burns in space and all that, it's in vacuum.
Maybe down the road.
And once the
I
booster
wouldn't do that.
goes up with Super Heavy, for example, when it's approaching Miko, it's almost near vacuum already. So just because it is a sea level engine doesn't mean it doesn't work on vacuum. It's actually more capable, more thrust, more performance. The only difference is that the vacuum optimized one has even more. That's sort of the difference. The key difference here is that.
I just looked more into the countdown on previous things. I'm just A/B testing old tests right now. The deluge system and the upstream vent will both start at 20 seconds before T0.
Okay, thank you for that. We're also going to be keeping an ear out for the siren, which does give us that 10-minute warning, approximately 10-minute warning. So that is definitely something to keep an ear out for as well. Could give us a heads up for the T0. But since we're into engine chill operations, we could expect that very shortly. In fact, we're into the window where, Adrian, you mentioned, we're into the time where we could be expecting an imminent test. So I'll try to keep some quick messages here, and maybe we can start to listen in a little bit more closely.
Yeah, seeing Starships.
However, this could take long. I just
but
want
this
to point
could take much
out
longer.
again.
Yes, gotcha.
Yes, this is.
You know what
uncertain.
I wish I had a T-minus 10-minute siren for when bugs enter my room. I just have one in my room. Getting some company here, just getting ready for the static fire test.
What? I didn't.
So want to see it.
Say? You what?
Alright, let's see. Some other messages coming in here.
I don't
Dane
I
saying
didn't-
good
I
morning
didn't
from
get
down
what he
under.
said.
Has there been any more info about orbital refilling? Not sure we've seen any recent updates on that front, actually. But that's definitely something that's going to be coming up very shortly after the first orbital test flight. If they can demonstrate successful launch to orbit, I think one of the next test objectives, if not the next test objective, well, alright, maybe deploying Starlink satellites is another thing they'll want to develop first, but then maybe after that,
Interesting,
orbital
Colonel.
refueling
Hey, thanks for the bits a
for
little bit
purposes of the
earlier, dude. I do
HLS program,
appreciate
as well as just supporting missions beyond Earth orbit. That's going to be a very near-term test objective. But we haven't heard anything super recently on that.
Also, just because I saw some people mentioning it, yes, this pulse pattern was on previous vehicles a good
heard something.
indicator for an imminent T0. No, it's not anymore. That's one of these cases
Can I
where
rewind that?
We haven't orbital to orbit for purposes of the HLS program, as well as just supporting missions beyond Earth orbit. That's going to be a very near-term test objective. But we haven't heard anything super recently on that.
Also, just because I saw some people mentioning it, yes,
But we haven't heard anything super
pattern was
recently on that.
Right when he says also because I see some people mentioning it, I hear something. Listen.
Also, just because I saw some people mentioning it, yes, this pulse pattern was on previous vehicles a good indicator for an imminent T0.
Something thumped or popped or whatever. Did you hear it?
Also, just because I saw some people mentioning it, yes, this pulse pattern.
2, right? Like those have also been upgraded similarly?
Yes, that's the case.
Yeah.
So the 6 engines on ship 24 are 3
at the same
sea level
time as a
Raptor
vent,
2s and
but
3 vacuum
could be
Raptor
wrong.
2s.
And we pointed out this
the-
earlier, this will be the most thrust ever generated by a Starship prototype if this is a 6-engine static fire.
More than Delta for Heavy.
Prepare to fast
But
forward.
you know,
Preparing to
there
fast
was,
forward. Fast forwarding,
there was
chat.
routes-
We were pretty caught up.
recently that we saw, I believe it was a visit of the HLS program people to Starbase. They released some pictures of that, and there was one of the pictures where they
Late
showed
September
one of these
style?
Raptor 2 vacuum engines, and you could see the nozzle extension was completely different, and the plumbing was simplified just like the Raptor 2. So yeah, it was a total
Right
different
liquidator.
kind of vacuum Raptor that you could see there.
Gotcha. The second part of this question, how many times can the engines
I'm
be
not a nerd
cycled
though,
before
Max,
they need a full
so
inspection?
This is more for you.
I don't know if we have official info on that, but what we do know is that these engines are of course designed to be very reusable and very easily reusable. And so they're going to have to withstand many ignitions, they're going to have to withstand many minutes of firing and many temperature cycles before it is safe to say that they're not really approaching any of those limits.
There's a glitch in the
It would be
matrix.
bad if they already approached that. That would be very bad for their design goals with a rapid reusable system if you had to
They changed
inspect them
something.
after like 10 firings
We're
or
trapped.
so.
Oxygen
Right,
tanks
exactly.
frosting up.
Here's a question from Matthew. Says, isn't the Air Force looking to land in austere sites for their rocket cargo program that would require landing leg development? Well, so we know landing legs are going to be required. The first ship to land on the Moon and Mars will
We
have
got some
landing
frost
legs.
accumulation up there.
But yes,
Whoa!
there's also... Whoa!
Big chill down.
That's a depress, right?
Or, yeah, it's not. It's not.
That's
That
not
does
good.
indeed look
It's a
like a
depre-
deep
Whoa,
press
out the header tank
from the
too.
header tank too.
Damn it! Is there an echo in here?
I'm not a fan of that, I have to say.
That's a long duration.
That's a
depressor.
lot of venting.
It's a long duration depress, guys. Yeah, that's a test abort. I noticed it started happening when this started frosting over. You see that? I'm telling you, dude. I heard something. I don't know what it was, but I heard something. It wasn't mic buffeting. It was coming on the same channel as the depress noise. And the LOX tank started to frost over some more. You see that?
Out. We saw
Also,
with Booster
we
7
saw
them
that
back
with the
out and then
booster,
come
right?
right back.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tessa. They saw something they didn't like, and they aborted the test. It aborted the test, dude.
Let's be hopeful for now.
It boarded it.
Yes.
Boarded. Let off some steam.
Alright,
Bennett.
while the
Jack, I'm not gonna kill
looks
you
like the
between the
countdown
eyes.
may potentially be entering a
Let off some
recycle.
steam, Bennett.
Let's dive into the end of this question here. Talking about landing leg development, and yes, we do know that some ships are going to need landing leg development. And I think the Earth-to-Earth concept, especially for the military use, where you might not be landing at spaceports, is definitely another key indicator that landing legs will be required in some way, shape, or form.
I will make it little.
What else? Also, Camtech with the comment saying that you could build the catch infrastructure using in situ resources, so resources that you can actually gather from those places. And that is true, however,
Hey, Orion,
you would need to
remember when I
bring
said that I
the
was going
equipment
to kill
required to
you
gather
last?
those resources, all the equipment
lied.
required to process those resources, so using in situ resources on the Moon and Mars still require a lot of
it
up-mass
was a
capability
pop.
initially.
Tessa and yeah.
So, worth making that point, though.
So, fellas, okay, you have non-uniform frost accumulating here. See that? If they were filling up the fuel slowly, right? If they were filling up the fuel slowly, it would just gradually rise up, like what it was doing. But we have non-uniform frost, which means something depressurized. I think something depressed. I think that I'm not trying to stir the pot or anything. It sounds like the vehicle broke, but I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. This type of condensation pattern here does happen. It does happen when they depress, but I noticed it happening before depressurization. Something went weird with that one. I'm telling you, I heard something pop. I heard a pop. It sounded like a pressure vessel popping, but I don't know for sure. The most important thing, Sully, is gravity. Has there ever been a time two separate rockets were launched near simultaneously? The closest thing would be Gemini 6A and Gemini 7 Stroker. Yeah. Yeah, the header tank. Yeah, AFD. The header tank purging out. Yeah, you gotta remember, every line that you're gonna flow propellant through, you have to bleed it. Just like on SLS, it's the same thing. You gotta bleed these lines. You have to thermally condition them. That's so important. You don't want gas accumulating anywhere. But see, yeah, that non-uniform condensation right there. That's like, and then right when it started to form, right, they nixed the test. It might, drummer. It might not. They were trying to do something in the LOX tank, and then they were like, nah, never mind.
Your relation with them there, because I feel like that would be a line that they would not like to have crossed during testing.
Potentially, yeah.
Yep.
Also, big
let's
crane.
see here.
Indeed.
Here's a good question from Teres asking at lunchtime, how much ice is expected to be on the full stack and what effect does that have on the rocket as it ascends? We get this question a lot about not just ice, but also any soot that builds up on the outside of Falcon rockets, for example. Worth noting that this is a pretty negligible effect. We don't usually experience any sort of aerodynamics effects for either soot or ice, or the weight effects even.
That's the Starlink launch that I missed, Thomas.
It's basically such a small effect that it does not really change the trajectory of them.
We lost video feed. No, serious. The booster did something. They static fired the booster a little bit earlier. But
appreciate the support there, Terrace.
Guys, I'm starting to hit a wall. I didn't get much sleep last night because we stayed up to the Starlink launch, and then I got up for New Shepard. I got like 4 hours of sleep. Starting to catch up to me.
In the past, a great indicator if they really spooled down.
The booster went apocalypsis. Yeah, it was pretty sweet.
Pressurized the whole system. Was that vent stack starting? So as long as that is not starting, I am very optimistic about this test still.
Like you're thinking that they could jump right back into it without like a full detank or anything?
Yeah, I feel like that vent stack is some sort of like tank farm saving depressurization related, because it always spools down with the tank farm. So
it's the
we'll see,
recondenser.
but I think as long as that is not going, we are fine.
It's scrubbed, serious. You didn't miss it.
It's not going.
I hate to burst your bubble.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure, drummer.
Well,
I can check.
On that, and we could then remain a little hopeful that we're not going to back too far out of the countdown.
Oh, look, it's grassland.
Oh yeah, what does that mean, Adrian?
Nothing. Nothing. I just thought, and I had like this meme of the chicken. Having,
Same
like,
time tomorrow.
Eyes.
Also
looking at it angrily. That was me right now.
We got a question here from Zachary
That's
saying,
nice.
so I should clarify that.
That's nice.
Is when you go back to a previous part of the
That's
countdown.
nice.
So something happened that you
That's a
either
big
plan to
motor.
get there, you plan to get to a certain point of the countdown,
It's blue.
intentionally abort and then go back to a different point of the countdown and redo it, or you saw some data that indicated something that was outside of the acceptable ranges or whatever, and there's an abort. You don't necessarily have to do a full recycle.
Nice as
In the
spaghetti.
sense of you have to detank the
All that
vehicle,
extra
stop
wiring on
everything,
it,
and
especially
go
the
from
red
there. You
stuff.
can sometimes go back to a
Developmental flight
recycle
instrumentation.
point, which is where just an earlier part of the
That's
countdown.
all
where you can then
DFI
resume
stuff,
from
guys.
again. So that's what we're talking about. A recycle. It's basically not a full.
The yellow bit on the top
removal
is the
of fuel
turbo
from the
pumps.
rocket.
Yep.
You can cycle back to a earlier part of the countdown.
V4
and
has
go from there once
both pumps on one shaft.
that can happen on testing. That can happen on
He
actual
said
launch attempts.
shaft.
Very common in rocketry.
One single power shaft. That's hardcore, dude. That's a really, really complicated engine. It's really hard to do something like that.
Emergency depress, if I've ever seen one. I don't know about emergency depress, especially considering it didn't seem to be a full depress. I would not classify it as an emergency depress, actually.
Frost is increasing. I don't think they're detanking yet. The frost increases when you have a depressurization, Jackal. The strength of the mount to hold it sideways. What are they mounted? Oh. That's Mutter. That is some thick boy steel right there. It's got to be two inches thick. 2-inch thick angle. Or no, that's 2-inch plate stock that's been welded in an X. Yeah, that ain't going nowhere. That ain't going nowhere.
Musical Wolves, thank you for the support there as well. And Michael, thanks for the Red Team membership. Appreciate the support from everyone who is tuned into the stream. Hope you're enjoying
we get
the
fuel
live
pumps that
coverage.
need
Hopefully
fuel pumps.
we'll get yet another static fire here. I do remember the Booster 7 abort.
Iron, the space shuttle has low pressure and high pressure fuel pumps. The RS-25s do. They have pumps for your pumps. Low pressure and high pressure. True story.
On here, Thomas, I will take
Yeah, I'll
over
just
here
leave
from
it.
that.
Mine.
It's been great, but you know.
Jackal. See how the frost is only
It is
going up
also
one
worth
side?
reiterating, though, that
See what I'm
it
talking
could be
about? You're
planned
looking
that
at it
way.
from
It's
the
not
side
necessarily
view,
an
you don't
actual
see the
abort.
frost.
It could be
But
that
on
they
that
plan to do
side,
some fueling up to a
frost
certain
is going
point,
up non-uniform,
abort,
dude.
recycle, and now they're going to get into
Interesting,
some more
right?
testing.
I don't know if
Those
that's a
are
depress
actual
or something broke or if
Yeah, what
Yeah,
I
but
want
if
to
you-
what, but frost is going non-uniform up
point
the
out
side of the
here,
vehicle.
the frost ring is still very much consistent. You see the frost going up here, but it's hard to see, but there's a difference between the real frost ring and just a bit more frost creeping up the outside of the tank. I think that's related to boil off, where the liquid oxygen in there starts to boil, and then as gas
Now you're
goes
making
up the
stuff up.
tank,
I made you
and
up.
even
You're
liquid
imaginary, you
oxygen
don't
that
exist.
just turned to gas is still very much cold. It's not. It's.
I want a
just
pump for the pump
boiling
for the pump for
doesn't
the
mean
pump,
it's
though.
200
But-
degrees here.
but-
So it still freezes the tanks,
Maybe?
I think, while going up as gas.
How close are we to a static
Well,
fire?
maybe a
That's
little bit of that.
Bomber,
But I
I'm
would
not
also add
100%
I
on
think
that
even
one.
the
It's going to be a
perhaps
little bit,
stronger,
I think.
Part of this
Yo, dog.
is that when they
Heard you like
depressurize
pumps,
the
so
tank,
put
if
pumps
you
on your
drop the
pumps, you
pressure
pump while you
rapidly
pump.
like that, that is also comes with a big drop in temperature.
What's up, dog? We
And
heard you
so
like portals,
frost
so we
can
put a
form
trunk
on
in
the
your
outside
glove
of that
box.
tank when you right after a depressurization event. We actually see that during
Old meme.
detanking operations sometimes as well.
There's a name, right? There's a name for that effect. I always forget it. I
Could be the
always,
sun side,
when you
yeah.
bring it up, I'm like, yeah, it has a name. And then somebody remembers me of that name. And then I'm like, yeah, I will remember that now. And then I forget it again.
Nah, nothing yet.
Some other messages that have come through here. Oh, here's a good question. Tara is asking if SpaceX or NASA wanted a Starship that was optimized to be part of a space station, could the methodology... Oh,
There we go.
Can we go to infinity, I think? Yeah.
oh yeah.
Event stack is active. Which... It kind of spells not a great message here. This is really... In the past we have seen this so many times, and so far it was a sign for spooling down activity.
Oh, that stack
I
over
think
there.
that's a fair statement to say. This right now, from a chance perspective, makes a test in the very near future at least unlikely.
Now curious to see how long it'll take to detangle that blocks.
Right. So, folks, if you are wondering what we're looking at...
It's all fake. It's on a green screen. No, it's not. I can walk right to it. Look.
To the left of your screen, right above where the ticker says
like
Starship,
right by
there's
it
that
now.
black
See, I'm in a much bigger room now, so I can like walk to things.
That's
kind of cool, right? Like,
and that is the indicator we're looking at. That usually coincides with a full detanking rather than just a recycle. So,
isn't that neat?
Worth pointing that out. Again, nothing is certain in the world of Starship testing, and the window does not close till 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time.
Yeah,
and so
that's
it is
cold.
possible, there you go, now that the stack is picked up, it's a little more visible. Possible that we're not done for the day. However, this is a pretty strong sign that they are going to detank Ship 24 right now.
Yeah.
Alright, well while that goes on, we'll keep an eye out for any other
43
indicators
degrees
of
in
new
our fair
activity,
city
but we'll dive back into this question.
22 degrees
so,
over there,
if Starship was going to be optimized to be part of a space station,
East.
could the fuel tanks be shrunk significantly to make a larger livable volume in the payload section?
Oh, let me...
You can tell that it's scrubbing because of the way it is.
I mean,
you
would reduce the performance significantly, right?
Right in this area.
And also,
but that's the thing. If you're only going
there, you got a lot of condensation. We got a nice warm front.
You only need the fuel to get there, and then
a nice warm front moving in today, which might cause a little bit of scattered showers throughout the afternoon.
Like imagine you take a Starship variant. You don't need the heat shield. You take off the flaps. You've got. I guess you'll need the engine color. Think of it like almost like a Skylab situation. You don't need the extra propellant to go beyond lower orbit.
They're there.
It's possible
that you
could have smaller tanks. You know, you move where the bulkheads
they're there.
are, and as long as you have the propellant margin to get to orbit, beyond that you don't actually need anymore.
Yeah, but wouldn't that also
you
mean
can
a very significant
now.
amount of work and redesign in terms of like pressure and everything? Like,
there you go. There's your
exercise
for the day.
Not that trivial, right?
Man, I really felt the burn on that one.
Very trivial, right? It is probably simpler than on other rockets where simply because the bulkhead on Starship is, just putting a bulkhead between the outside walls. There's not a tank within an outside wall,
Doesn't hurt.
So maybe that makes it slightly better, but I do agree with you that wouldn't be super trivial.
Look at that flare stack. That flare stack is getting out what it can get out.
Going wild.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Go cycle for 8 miles a day, then get on your level. Jump right, I don't need to. I own automobiles. Okay.
But definitely a good question, Taras. Thank you for the super chat support to ask that question as well. And
you could get a moving background and make it look like you're running now.
And Jerwa has gifted 5 red team members, so appreciate both of you and your support. Hope
the Home Alone 2-bit. I was hoping, Paladin, that somebody would get it. The blowtorch to the head.
Thank you for the super chat support as well. Appreciate it.
Just look, and this is
this looks like an abort. Might as well go back to F1.
The vent stake is going on right now.
Gonna cry. Gonna venture prop, maybe static fire.
Brian Pop with another super chat as well. Appreciate the support, Brian.
I actually like this whole standing thing. This is kind of neat.
Here.
This is kind of neat. We could just kind of sit here. I could just kind of walk around and get my steps in.
Spaceflight in chat. I'm reading through some to pick out some fresh
Or get a standing desk.
Oh, here's a good question. What are they venting?
I don't want
they just vent all the fuel
I want to
into
stand
the atmosphere?
Here. Look, it's like I'm here.
That, I think, is liquid oxygen.
It's time to stop! It's time to stop, okay?
Liquid oxygen can be safely vented because obviously there's plenty of oxygen in the atmosphere and it just vaporizes.
Yes, and the recondenser is still
Oh, this
on,
is sweet.
So I think
you guys should buy houses. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
Hey. Yeah, what I think both do though, the recondenser and
worst weather girl channel ever?
Vent nitrogen.
Yeah, you're probably right, Vape, but I'm probably not a really good weather woman, to be honest with you. I mean, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, because it uses nitrogen to also liquefy
Wait, why do
the
I
methane,
see through your
right?
shorts? Because they're green?
Yeah, and it's also more about the
Burn shirt, nice.
pressurization systems that they run to be able to drain back
Yeah, that's a
the
little bit.
liquids.
Nice try, Max.
You may also see that
4 out of 10 for
sometimes,
effort.
even on Falcon 9 missions when they have to.
But we will give you
recycle.
legs.
There's
We will
very
give you
little
legs.
times when that happens.
All right, right on.
But they actually
right on.
happen sometimes. You
Right
can
on.
see
Sweet.
some of that venting from the, especially for the liquid oxygen on Falcon 9. You can see that as
Darius,
well.
nice.
Some venting from the tank farm for that.
Oh, come on, that was good. All right, guys, I think we're no good for the day, but we did get a booster static fire. Shall we finish the Haster plan?